Good morning, everyone. We will call our library committee meeting on June 4th, 2024. To a start, I will look over to our committee clerk to conduct the roll call.
Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Here I am.
Councillor Nowak. Chair Salonen.
Present.
Councillor Shantz. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. I would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest this morning? Okay, seeing none, we will go right on to report 401, and that's our library capital program and reserve update. And I will call on Carol Pfeiffer, our financial analyst, to introduce the report.
Good morning. On our last library committee meeting, we were requested to provide a bit of history about the library capital reserve. So that's in Appendix A. And you can see from that we've used it for various different projects in the past, the library headquarter renovation, some different capital projects, but also operating related costs in 2021, some pandemic related costs. And also in 2023, we used the library capital reserve to lower the tax levy. So that's a bit of a summary about the past history. There was also a request to provide a copy of the policy about the sources and uses of funds. And in the report, we noted that there is no formal policy, but again, as you know, discussed in what has happened with Appendix A, the past practice was to allocate the region of Waterloo library surplus to the library capital reserve, and that the funds in the library capital reserve can be used for capital projects and operating projects such as the pandemic supplies, or to temporarily mitigate or phase in significant property tax impacts. So the other thing that has been provided was Appendix B. And in Appendix B, you can see a projection for 10 years. Starting with the 2024 opening balance of $1,248,000 in the reserve, and then the 10-year capital forecast that's utilizing the library capital reserve, all the different projects. And so you can see that the reserve is being drawn down based on this capital forecast, which, as you know, it could change when we do the 2025 budget. But basically showing it with this projection is showing a balance at the end of 2033 of about $509,000 as compared to $1.2 million currently. Is there any questions on this?
Councillor Shantz?
Yeah, thank you. Do we ever use the reserve to buy books or anything like that?
Yeah, so what happens is we have some money in the operating budget for books, and part of it is financed through RDC, and part of it is also financed through the library capital reserve. But you can see that in the projection, kind of where you see all the different outflows, there's the library collections, it's $13,000 a year. Because when we did the RDC study, there was an estimate of how much was growth related, which was, I think, $130,000 a year, of which 90% is RDC funded and 10% is library capital reserve funded.
Any additional questions? I was wondering on Appendix B for the capital reserves projections. I see the AODA retrofits and this year there isn't anything, but then there's subsequent things for almost every other year. I'm curious, where are we with our AODA retrofits, obviously, because next year my understanding is that we're supposed to be up to date, following the Act and in line with the Act. So I'm just curious on that, as well as what does our retrofits include, since we don't own the buildings. I'm curious how that all works out, if the municipalities are supposed to pay for that or what that looks like.
I'm not sure if Julian can help with that.
I can try. So I think the allocation there is anticipating that we'll need to do ongoing accessibility improvements as we go. And if we get into our next item, we do talk about how for the interior of the branches, those accessibility improvements are on the region.
Okay, is it possible we could get a report back with where we are in meeting our AODA requirements?
Yeah, certainly.
Great. Any other questions at this time, councillors? This is just received for information. No? Okay. Seeing none, we will move along to 4.2. And this report was deferred at our April 30th library meeting to allow the committee and township staff more time to review. Julian Kingston, our Director of Cultural Services, is available for any questions. Are there any? If I'm seeing none, just for those watching online, this is our memorandum of understanding that was deferred. So if there are no questions, oh yes, Councillor Shantz. Not a problem, we'll wait a moment.
I haven't had enough coffee yet. I should have written it down. Okay, it's not coming to me right now, and I didn't write it down, so.
Okay. Oh, we have Councillor Foxton, and then we'll go over to staff, I think had comments.
Thank you. Just a quick comment on it. When I was reading it over, is they talk about the KPMG report. The townships did not ask the region if they wanted the buildings. If I remember correctly, the region asked the townships to hand the buildings over, which I respectfully declined because ours is a new building built by our citizens. So the report assumes that the region did not want the buildings. In actual fact, the regions approached the township, if I remember correctly, requesting that we hand over ownership of our buildings, which we, as I recall, declined. Thank you.
Just for clarity, Councillor Foxton, did you want that changed for the permanent record?
I think it should be changed in the report because I think it is inaccurate. Thank you.
Okay. And now, Rod and Julian, I know before you turned your mics on, I don't know if you do have comments that you wanted to add or not.
No, I can't speak. I wasn't here for the history in terms of what the negotiations were around the facilities. So I would have to defer to Rod if he remembers. But if there's some inaccuracies, we can clear it up.
Through you, Chair, I haven't the foggiest idea who asked for what. Honestly, I can't recall. I mean, we could spend some time to figure that out, but I don't think it'd be actually worth, I think we've got a great memorandum of understanding. It's a good progressive start to clarifying the relationship amongst the area municipalities and the townships in the region on the who does what question. And yeah, this is a really good step forward in my view.
All right. Any other questions at this time, Councillor Shantz?
I still didn't find my spot, but the question had to do with the length of the agreement and how there's, if things change, how we renegotiate that agreement. That's what the question was about. I just can't find the specific spot that made me ask that question. So maybe if you can
Yeah, I can
speak
jump
to
in on that
that.
through you, Chair. So the agreement is aligned with council terms, and that's deliberate so that we line it up with the library committee mandate. There's also some timing built into it for review before each time it gets reviewed. There's like a 6-month review of it to look for, if there's issues or things that need to be addressed. But it was deliberately timed to follow a council term.
And I think just to add a little bit of detail, in the conclusion, it reads that all parties shall review the MOU no later than June 30th, 2027. So we've definitely got a horizon on this.
Councillor Foxton.
But this doesn't match term, if I'm correct, right? The election's in 2026, so the next term would be 2026 to 30. And this states that this ends in 2028. So would we make a clause that says this initial term will be till 2026, and the new MOU would start again with the new council?
It could be my error. We might have timed it to the midterm of the council.
It may be better to correct that and say, because of when it's signed, the first agreement will run till 2026. And then the next 4-year term would be 2026 to 30.
The way that it's articulated here is that we'll review it anytime before June 30th, 2027. I think the objective would be to have the new council make a final decision on the MOU, and, or the new committee make a final decision on the MOU in the middle of the first year of the next council. So there was some flexibility about when we start that process. We'd probably be looking to start that process in 2026 with some discussions amongst township staff and library staff and our facilities team and so on and so forth, and then come to bring a report forward the middle of the next year after the new council is in place to get some feedback and direction from the new council.
I think that would need to be put into the MOU, because if none of us are here, or only some of us are here, it's not very clear. This clearly states, 2028. So I think that needs to be stated, the process, because I know staff change, politicians change, and they will follow usually you follow the letter of the law, what the contract says. So if we could get more clarification on that. Thank you.
We will go over to Chair Redmond, and then I do see that.
I think Rod actually made the point I was going to make, but to Sue's point as well, if you're brand new into this role, I would think you want a few months to get your feet wet. And I mean, there is a termination notice. I'm not saying that anybody'd go to the nuclear option necessarily, but I just saw this as allowing new people to sort of get their legs under them before they reviewed this. So I didn't have a problem with the 2028, and I think it's good that it doesn't coincide exactly with a new council for exactly the reason Councillor Foxton has said.
Commissioner Rose, did you want to chime in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just reading the terms, and there is a number 3 under Article 2. It does say the agreement can be amended by the written agreement of the parties. So I think that means that throughout this, as long as everybody agrees, this agreement can be amended, which I think speaks to what Councillor Foxton was trying to get at. Is it?
Is that satisfactory for you, Councillor Foxton, or would you like to see the process added to the memorandum explicitly?
I'm comfortable with whatever the majority thinks.
Do we have general consensus? Councillor Shantz, I'm going to pick on you as you're touching your microphone.
Helps me think. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is it never hurts to have clarity. If there's confusion or concern here and now, then it doesn't hurt to put it in writing, because I do agree with Sue. Politicians change, staff change, and then the intent gets lost sometimes, so.
Councillor Nowak? That's okay. Just to summarize, it's to put in essentially the process that Commissioner Regier mentioned about how they'd start in about 2026, speaking with township staff, to start looking at and addressing the new MOU, and then it would come to the new council in about 2027 for feedback for a 2028 date to be voted. Councillor Foxton just wants the clarity of that actually outlined in the memorandum of understanding versus just a verbal understanding between those that happen to be in the chamber at this time. Chair Redmond? Okay. So in terms of process then, I guess we would need staff to go back to legal to write that in and then bring this back. But I will look to Commissioner Regier.
Yeah, it's a minor bit of crafting, and so if we'll work with the clerk's office just to make sure we've got the right language here, and then execute it on that basis.
I would suggest if this works for the committee, that maybe we just add to the proposed recommendation as amended, and then we can confirm that language, get that all worked out, and we can kind of get that off the books here today, so if that works.
Sounds better to me than deferring again. With that, do we have a mover and a seconder for our MOU as amended? Moved by Councillor Nowak, seconded by Councillor Shantz. I'm just going to do all of those in favor. And that carries unanimously. Okay, and on to, oh, sorry, Councillor Nowak. If you could just turn your microphone on, sorry.
Just one quick question, just for clarity, and it's not a big issue, but under financial implications, maintenance of library facilities will increase the operating budget of the region by $40,000 annually, and that's for snow removal, exterior maintenance, and landscaping. But I thought that's the township's responsibility, not the region's. So why would it increase?
Through you, Chair, it does depend on the branch arrangement. So for some of the where the branch is standalone branch, I believe the region's responsible for much of that. So
I wouldn't have thought that was the case. I could be wrong. But.
I'll be honest, that's beyond my knowledge.
if we go to Appendix A.
In Appendix A, you're saying?
Just make sure I've got it right here. Yeah, for under the standalone facilities, if we go down to exterior, it's the region that's responsible for things like window repairs, roof maintenance, facade, general repairs, maintenance, window cleaning, signage, that sort of thing. General custodian.
But not snow removal.
That would be page 8 out of 11 on Appendix A on item 4.2. And so it separates dedicated library spaces within a township facility. Exterior is the facilities responsibility, or is the township's responsibility, except for it's a 50% share on library exit signage. Or that might be exterior. I'm not positive what that acronym is.
If you look at site in Appendix A, where it talks about standalone facilities, it's got snow removal, snow haulage, grass cutting, horticulture. The majority of that waste management all falls under the region.
Okay, so still page 11, or page 8, sorry, I'm just looking one box down.
I believe, yeah. Where the facility is in a shared facility, where the library is in a shared facility, then it is the township's responsibility, but where the library is a standalone, then it's the region's responsibility. There was a lot of through the chair, a lot of the work that went into this was to detail that between the various branches.
Okay, thanks for the, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we will move along to 4.3, and that's the library committee terms of reference revision. And I will again call on Director Kingston to provide the presentation.
Great, if we could just pull that up.
Oh, sorry, we've pulled that?
No,
pulling it up. Okay, I was going to say, I didn't see that update to the agenda.
No, there's still a presentation. Yeah, so basically, thank you, Chair. Basically, this is just following on from some of our previous discussions around developing a terms of reference for the library committee. We were tasked as a working group to basically do a draft terms of reference. And there was initial, we can go to the next slide. There's just some background in terms of what legislation is relevant to the terms of reference, and basically it does have to line up with both the Municipal Act and the Public Libraries Act. We're compliant. This is not an issue to date. If we have the next slide. And this is just talking through the steps of kind of how we got to where we are. So there was early consultant, even before the previous meeting, there's an early consultation with our reconciliation, equity and diversity inclusion team to see that we were getting EDI updates into the terms of reference as we have across other committees. We did introduce a draft term of reference. Well, we did our working group session, including the clerk, Jeff Smith, who was delegated to act for the CAOs in developing and reviewing the draft terms. We have circulated the draft terms back to the CAOs and the township clerks for their comment. And today, we're hopefully going to be reviewing those draft terms as the committee. So if we can have the next slide. What we're looking for in terms of improvements out of the terms of references is to ensure that we're still doing really good communication between the townships and the library. Looking to calendarize. I think again, this predates me, but some of the feedback was that the library committee meeting times are maybe not as standardized as they could be. So looking to really calendarize those in a quarterly fashion. The big anticipated change is increasing the number of people on the committee and creating 4 public members. And one of the question marks for today, or one of the things I wanted to put forward, is to whether we would want the chair of the committee to be drawn from the public members or not, and stipulate that in the terms of reference. It's not currently stipulated there now, but that's a question. Because assuming a successful review of the terms of reference today, our next step would be to also get some public feedback on that. And the idea is to create an engage page and a survey around the terms of reference. Obviously, looking at the additions to the committee, we were careful in looking at language that ensured that the townships were well represented and had control over that representation, and then just lays out some of the principles and the kind of responsibilities of the committee. So the next slide. So did we want to bring the terms up, or do we have questions about the terms?
Are there questions?
Sorry, I didn't mean to preempt you, Chair.
No, that's okay. Councillor Shantz.
Yeah, thank you. Could, excuse me, could someone articulate for me why it's a library committee and not a library board? Why council is considered the library board?
I can try.
That'd be great.
So, for the purposes of the Libraries Act, the council is the chair, is the board for the library.
I would just add further clarity. It's actually under the Municipal Act in section 474.16 that makes the Region of Waterloo Council the board effectively to then follow under the board definition in the Libraries Act. It's at the top of the general part. I don't just happen to have random knowledge
going,
and
wow.
being able to quote the Municipal Act. I am reading it off of the top of Appendix A.
But, so then you probably can't answer this question then, because I don't think it's at the top there, but are we the only board that's has this, like, are we the only library that has that kind of configuration? Somewhere along the line in the last year, someone said it is very specific to Waterloo Region and not general across the province.
So my short answer is I don't know. However, I have, for example, when I was at Oakville, the Oakville Museum Board was structured the same way, whereas so that the board for the purposes of that relevant legislation and particularly its compliance with ministry guidelines, the town council was the board of the museum, so it's not that unusual. But I can't name another library where they're off the top of my head where the regional council is the board.
Okay, thanks.
And Chair Redmond.
So Chair Sallin, and I was so impressed that you were just pulling that off the top of your head like that. I just have to say that the Municipal Act is specific to each region. For example, it's an old chestnut around here, but mayors are referred to as councillors at the region of Waterloo. So while there is some commonality of each founding piece of legislation for each region, some of them are very specific, and this is a carve out and ours specifically saying that we are the library board.
Any other questions at this time? Councillor Nowat.
Just curious, the 4 public members that would be included or added to the board, what would, is it specific what their responsibilities are? Like, would they have a voting?
Yes, they would be, through the chair, they would be voting members of the board. They would have the same, all the members would have the same responsibilities.
Is the same as the mayors, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just found it a little unusual that, in a case of some controversial issue, where the voting or the public members could actually take a motion to the council, regional council, without the approval or without the full support of the mayors. That could happen, I'm assuming.
I guess theoretically it could, although the circumstance would require at least one mayor. I mean, what this particular terms of reference, and this is a draft, so this is up for conversation and discussion and consultation. But what this particular terms of reference contemplates is adding 4 public community members to the board, which means that there would be an equal number of township mayors and regional councilors as well as community members. So theoretically, I guess if there wasn't either a consensus amongst the mayors or or one of the mayors was not present, then theoretically there could be a vote that would have community members voting differently than the mayors. But at this point, this particular terms of reference contemplates a balance between the two.
Yeah, no, my thought when it came to the 4 public members is that they would be there strictly as an advisory group. I'm not sure whether that's realistic.
I think Clerk Brubaker wants to step in.
So the thing that I would flag in relation to that is, as it's drafted right now, the 5 elected members would still, there would still be 5 members of regional council on the library committee. That would be more than the 4 community members. But ultimately, as we noted earlier, the Municipal Act still says the library board is regional council. So everything from the library committee, as it stands right now, still goes to regional council for approval or ratification generally. But if there was 4 members on the committee, 4 community members in addition, it still has to go to regional council. So in theory, there could be a day where the 4 community members managed to do something when the elected members weren't present, or when only 1 elected member was present. Ultimately, that recommendation would still go to regional council as the library board and would still be overseen by the elected members of regional council.
Okay. That sounds good. Sounds reasonable.
Councillor Foxton?
And that's really logical, Tim, with the exception of I would like to wager that 99% of the library board minutes are never touched by regional council. They are given to them, and I don't think they take the time to really look at them. I would recommend that we go ahead with the 4 public members, but make them non-voting, which is quite common. I sit on multiple boards where I don't have a right to vote, but it's just for me to put input in regards to North Dumfries Township. So I'm going to suggest that amendment and see what others think.
Okay, so that amendment is moved by Councillor Foxton. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Nowak. Comments or questions? Councillor Shantz, is that okay?
I'm thinking. I don't think I have a problem with that. It's easier to start that way and see what we think than to start the other way and try to walk it back. So I am in favor.
Well, now I'm just going to offer you the opportunity, Chair, if you wanted.
I have to say my thought process was very similar to Councillor Shantz's.
All right, so with that, then we will vote on the amendment. We'll just do hands again. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Any additional questions on the terms before us right now? No? Okay. I did have a question just about the timing of terms, that it's every 4 years and it's to coincide with the elections. I'm just wondering in terms of continuity, if it makes more sense to have it staggered. I know there's some committees that I sit on where members have dates so that there's no point that it's a whole brand new committee in theory. I'm just curious if that might be a better potential structure to look at, having them staggered, so that when there is turnover, it's not potentially 4 brand new general members of the public. There will be a few people who have some of the historical knowledge to provide. Also, I've been hearing tones of, on the last discussion that when it's a new council in 2027, so politicians do change. But yeah, I was just curious what everybody else's thoughts were on the term times. And Chair Redmond.
Can I just ask through you to staff why they coincided with the terms of office, if there was rationale to that?
Yeah, so through the chair, so all of the region's advisory committees as it stands now, there was a decision it's got to be a couple terms now ago, to have them line up. We used to have it such that they were staggered. Pardon me. So the logic being, this is council's committee to advise. So if council does change, then they're able to appoint their new members. And the same would go in this case for the township councils as well, right? those community members are here to represent the township council, so they're able to appoint their new member. I will flag, and this was something that Mr. Smith raised, was that there's a 6-month sort of window after the election for the new township councils to be able to appoint their members, just to give one, a little bit of that knowledge transfer, but also some time to go through the process of finding and appointing new members. I think, and I mean, it's we're in the committee's hands here, but I would suggest, and the rationale is that these community members are representing the township councils, and so as the term of council changes, they should have that responsibility to appoint their new members, and quite possibly the same people if the councils wish, but that authority still rests with them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shantz.
I think that makes sense. I'm skimming through again. I don't see any maximum number of terms or anything, so, you know, yeah.
Councillor Foxton.
So does it mean any member of the township? Like, could another councillor from a township sit on the board?
Through the chair, we intentionally left that very vague. We didn't want it to in any way to be seen as the region dictating who the townships send. So, for example, if the township of North Dumfries wished to send somebody who lives in Kitchener as their representative, so be it. I think our intention was not to dictate that. But yes, should a township council wish to send a councillor as their representative, the terms of reference are open to that. I will flag, we used to have an airport noise advisory committee that had members of communities from Kitchener and Cambridge and Woolwich. And there was a term where there wasn't any interest from citizens in Woolwich, so Woolwich Township sent 2 councillors. And that was fine, it operated well.
Just wanted to clarify.
Any other questions on these? Okay, for the time being, this is actually to receive for information, so staff can take back the amendment that we made, and I guess public consultation is the next step that you guys were looking at for this. Just, I'm going to look to our committee clerk here.
Hi, sorry, just for clarification through you, Chair. It's just we added the amendment you just made, so maybe on eScribe you're seeing that now, but the report is asking for no, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, very good. So if there's no other questions or comments on this, we'll receive it for information and look forward to seeing it back in August. Are there any questions about the council committee tracking list? Gonna say that I see none. I was just giving you all a moment to pull it up. Okay. Seeing none, is there any other business at this time? Councillor Nowak, was that it? No, okay. Your microphone's still on though. Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing any other business. The next committee meeting will be August the 14th and then again November the 26th. That takes us out for the remainder of the year. Just a quick question on the November 26th without looking at my calendar. That lines up before budget final approvals, correct? So we'll have the budget information. Perfect, thank you. So I will, Councillor Shantz.
Just along that line, then for November, goodness, for August, can we specifically talk about the opening times? Because I think that was in one of the reports about where we had requested maybe more hours in the summer. And I think it was suggested that we need to do that during budget. So we should address that in August. So if it can be specifically put on the agenda, because I'm going to forget.
Very good. That's been noted. Any other questions, other business comments?
Yeah. And
Councillor Nowak.
you just brought back some things I forgot. When it comes to the hours of operation, I think when I read the report, to extend or to have more hours of operation would require, looking at it at budget time. But what about shifting the hours? Well, if so, for example, we don't have in Wellesley, we don't have hours on Friday. And rather than adding more, could we shift hours to include Friday? Is that a possibility? And I'm not sure how that would look or where those hours would come from, but I've been asked that by one of my constituents, somebody very close to me.
Director Kingston, do you have comment on that?
I think there was some discussion at the last meeting through you, Chair, around that. We can certainly look at, we actually have room within budget to add hours as well at the moment. So I think looking at operating hours is something we can come back to the next meeting on.
So if at all possible, I'd appreciate you having a look at Wellesley branch on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, through the Chair, we can specifically look at Fridays at Wellesley.
Councillor Shantz?
But Joe, you wanted it for the summer as well? Like, do we need to deal with it here?
Ideally.
Right, because you wanted it for the cottage goers, correct? Yep. In part, at least. Okay, Councillor Foxton.
Just a suggestion that if we want hours changed and days and everything, maybe we could send it into our staff and let them look at what we want, because it may be different for each of us. So rather than throwing a bunch of things out at them now, we could send them maybe an email saying, Wellesley wants this, North Dumfries wants this, Wilmot and Woolwich wants this, and then they can get a better handle on it. Before the August meeting, ladies and gentlemen.
I suppose for clarity, does staff need direction from this committee / the library board to add hours if you have it in the budget? Or is that something that can be negotiated outside?
Through you, Chair, to manage expectations, if we're looking at changing core hours, like adding a day, then we have notice requirements through the collective agreement that we have to give about 2 months notice. So getting that done for summer would be a real challenge. However, we can commit to taking feedback and looking at a review of the hours and see there might be days we could extending a day is a lot easier than adding a day. And because of the summer schedule being mostly set at the moment, our ability to affect summer hours is pretty limited.
That's fine. I can understand. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see about doing this in the fall, early fall, if possible.
So then would it be fair on all sides to say the mayors or their staff can send in what they would like for their areas in an ideal world so that staff know and aren't blindly trying to figure out where we want to increase hours, and then you could bring back and report back to us in August about a plan forward?
We, on an ongoing basis, do our best to optimize the branch hours anyway. We can certainly look at seeing where there might be adjustments. So that's a yes.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So we will proceed that way. Any other last business? Okay, seeing none, may I have a mover to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Nowak. All those in favor? And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.